This is not a guide on how to play Heron Spear. Although, if you do watch this video, by the end, you might feel an irresistible urge to try out this mighty weapon. This video, however, is about what I learned. About life, about love, about choosing the correct spell on your assassin jacket, about confidence, hubris, and the spell so good that this quarterstaff player decided to report me for cheating. I want to share with you what the Heron Spear has taught me, but let us start from the very beginning. My first very own Heron Spear. This is actually absolutely not true. I've played a decent amount of Heron in duo mists and even some in arenas. But this time, I bought a Heron Spear just for solo PvP. Not even 5 minutes in, and this double-bladed staff decides to challenge my manliness right away by dismounting on top of me. I did not buy a Heron Spear to run away from my problems. I bought it to run towards them. Of course, I would much rather have Inferno against his Stalker jacket, but real men don't swap spells. Even though I missed Impaler, the first trade was surprisingly even. He just used his healing potion, but I still have my second poison ready to go. Whether he's trying to kite a bit or fully run, my balanced demon boots make it pretty easy to catch up. The reason I don't use my second E right away is that I want to get him a bit lower and then do a big burst of all of my damage right at the end. Plan here is to use Invis when he turns with stun run, but demon boots are too fast and my reaction is too slow. It's all good though because he does not dodge my stun. I get a big confidence boost kill right off the bat. Remember, if you see a double-bladed, it's your job to make them very dead. It rhymes. Okay, subscribe and let's continue. Here I come across big man with sword and little boy with dagger furiously going at it. My mobility is not good, so I change my boots to rejuvenating sprint and my W to harpoon, to have at least some hope of catching one of these guys here. Cripple is not an option because I have no way to get close enough to actually use it, by the way. After embarrassingly missing my E, it looks like the bloodletter is getting away, so I decide to go for the higher value carving instead and harpoon him, but surprise! Little fish is dead, let's see what the big one does. Another skillful E from me confuses him just enough to waste his boots. Now I actually have a chance to catch him. I believe that if your main goal is to be a rat, you are not going to have a lot of fun in Albion Online, generally. However, if you do accidentally come across good ratting opportunities, why not take them? Hitting max range harpoon brings the carving home for a very nice and completely undeserved payday for me. So I've killed in self-defense and I have successfully ratted, but what about an actual legit 1v1 fight where both players want to have the fight? Let's check out a couple of those. For this fight against Deathgivers, I have an interesting choice to make, to choose Inferno or Invisibility. Now, on one hand, I don't really want to brawl him too much, so Invisibility would be nice to kite. It also works well against his Mercenary jacket. But on the other hand, he's using Stalker Hood, which is a counter to Invisibility, and he has Shadow Edge, so it's likely that at some point, sooner or later, I will have to accept a bit of brawling. I choose Inferno. He stacks on mobs and runs towards me, shadow edging the mob and hitting his first E. I completely miss my E, which is becoming a bit of an alarming pattern here. My build does good damage from far, and he decides to use his Mercenary jacket to heal up on the stone golem. Good thing I didn't choose Invis on my jacket, because as you can see, good players will find ways to heal up with their Mercenary anyway. As he's chasing me, he makes a bit of a gamble. Instead of stacking on mobs, he tries the Shadow Edge, but misses, and now he has no Shadow Edge and no stacks, and it's my time to be aggressive. Unfortunately, I keep missing half of my spells, but I'm still kiting him successfully and doing decent damage from far. I get a bit lucky that his stacks time out again, but once he's on top of me, it's my cue for using Inferno Shield. Now, whenever he's on top of me, I need to be able to do one of these three things. Either I use my boots to create space and try to dodge his Shadow Edge, either I use my Inferno to kind of accept the brawl but make it a good brawl or better for me, or to have my stun ready to stun him point blank and use the stun time to create a bit of space by walking. When all three of those are on cooldown, there is no way that I'm gonna be walking towards him. So I create a bit of space and he goes and uses mercenary jacket on another mob to heal up a bit. One thing that allows me to play from a distance without worrying is having demon boots and being on low HP, so if I need to, I can catch him. Since my Inferno is ready again, I feel pretty safe going after him, and even though he does a good job trying to dodge my stun, Heron Spear stuns AoE, so I can just throw it at the mob and finish the kill. So Inferno was definitely the best choice for this situation. Let's look at another one. Now, unlike my previous opponent, this Deathgiver's player absolutely insists on being dismounted on top of me. Starting the fight this way is a big advantage for him, because I need to figure out ways to kite him, plus, since he got dismounted, he gets CC immunity, and I accidentally throw my stun at the very end of it, so the stun doesn't work. I should have probably Inferno'd right away, but instead I choose to use my boots to create space, and he uses his E to chase me even without full stacks. So now his E's on cooldown. And so the only question is, can I actually kite him with my last 300 HP? That was really close. And one thing that's becoming really clear is that Heron Spear is teaching me to be better at using my Assassin Jacket. One Albion PvP fundamental that I will always keep repeating is that playing according to your current build is more important than choosing the theoretically best spells or items. Against this 6-3 Bloodletter, choosing Inferno would have been much better for me, but that is not the real mistake I'm making here. My real mistake here is brawling him at all. I know that I'm on Invis, he's 2 tiers higher and he's using Pure Mist. There's absolutely no reason for me to do this. My plan should absolutely have been to do a big burst of damage and then find ways to kite him while I wait for my cooldowns for the final burst. This fight is also a good showcase, by the way, of the power of Smuggler's Cape. He keeps both of his healing potions for the very end when he's already low, and that functions as very good bait and he gets a well-deserved kill. By the way, if you haven't tried the new cape yet for whatever reason, this is your sign to do it now. Just try it out and see for yourself how powerful it can be, especially in 1v1 fights. Now, this Bloodletter situation is completely different from the previous one. First of all, this time I actually switched to Inferno. Secondly, we are both same tier here, both playing 4-4 awakened weapons. And finally, notice that he stays on Omelette for this fight, which is pretty big mistake from him, by the way. And you can see here that even though my build is not really meant for brawling, in this case I'm pretty happy to do it. And it's clear that I get quite a bit of an advantage from our first brawl. I use my demon boots to chase him and I purposefully throw my E the moment I see him use his Q jump. This is the moment where he's the least likely to be able to dodge my spell. And luckily this works. One more Bloodletter fight and then I promise we'll look at different types of situations. Now in this clip I am playing tier 8 and my opponent is 6-3. So he is 1 tier higher, but I did switch to Inferno, so there is decent potential for brawling. However, I am not using my Inferno here. Do you know why? The fact is, there isn't really a good reason. I should absolutely Inferno here and brawl him. I still have Vietnam flashbacks from the Stalker Jacket meta that was dominating Mists last year, and so I keep my Inferno for his next Stalker Jacket, but I really shouldn't. Especially here where I'm using Mistcaller and Eel Stew, my Inferno cooldown is even lower than his Stalker Jacket. When he catches up to me, my only real chance to win is to get him a bit lower and then do all the big damage burst at the very end. And this is obvious when watching the recording. However, at the time of the fight, I still had some hopes of maybe kiting him and proc his undead cape too early. He uses his E too early and unfortunately I miss my Call of Purity. That was really close. I almost got him, but this is also a pretty nice example of how dying in PvP is a very good way forward. If I won this fight, I could very easily just remember this as an awesome thing that I did, killing this Bloodletter and making money, but thanks to the fact that I died, I looked at this fight in much more detail and noticed the two big mistakes that we just analyzed together. So don't be afraid of dying in PvP if you want to get better. By the way, remember that time I said this is gonna be the last Bloodletter fight for the day, and you guys all said, no, please Vic, show us another one. Okay. Very quick one from I was up at night, so I went back to my character on the Western server to check it out and decided to buy a 6-4-8-3 Heron just to have a bit of fun. And this 6-3 Bloodletter overcharged and tried to fight me. He was on Pure Mist, so I wasn't sure if I can just brawl. But I am 1 tier higher, I have Awakened Weapon, and I'm on Inferno, so I decided to give it a try. And that's 6 million in 20 seconds. By the way, remember that IP advantage always matters a bit more in brawl heavy fights and a bit less in kite heavy fights. Against a very kite heavy build like this Frost here for example, it often just comes down to whether or not you're able to catch them. And since I have no mobility on the Heron Spear, my only chance to do so is to hit a nice harpoon. He uses his boots aggressively, which is kind of okay, but now his finger has to be ready on the W to use his blink to dodge my spells. I don't want to risk missing another harpoon, so instead I use my boots first to get close to him, but he correctly uses invisibility to counter them. I start walking away from him and he uses his blink aggressively. This is a big mistake. I have absolutely no mobility spells and his boots will be ready way before mine. So he can easily just wait out his boots cooldown, use his boots to catch up and keep his W at all times to dodge my E or at the very least blink out after harpoon. I turn for the final brawl and it's a deathmatch to the end. By the way, shout out to this Morgana archer, I really could not have done this without him. Against this battle axe I don't want to risk it by losing a brawl, so my plan is incredibly clear. I do as much damage as I can from far. When he gets close, I use either my stun or my invisibility to try to create more space and continue doing damage from far. Boots are kind of last resort. The fact that he's walking away from me when my big damage is on cooldown means that he has a different view of this matchup and it looks like he thinks he's the one who's kiting. As a result, when he does turn back into me, my cooldowns are ready again, so it's a bad time and I'm able to win another trade. I use my invis just as planned when he's on top of me, and luckily I'm able to dodge both of his E's with my demon boots, after which it's an easy kill. Here I got my first chance to use the Heron Spear against the current strongest mist build, which is the plate prowling. Now this was originally a 3-way fight, but the third guy left, so this was kind of a 1v1. To be really honest with you, I'm so tired of fighting against this build that I've pretty much started avoiding them altogether. But the reason I did take this fight is that he's on tether. Without polymorph, it's kind of difficult for him to protect his transformations. So my number one objective is to hit as much as I can from my damage, as much of it during his cat form. Did you see what happened at the start of this fight? I hold on to all of my damage waiting for him to transform. Without polymorph he can't really prevent it, so his best bet is to try to dodge or bait out my spells. Instead, he just transforms, jumps towards me and gets hit with a lot. This is the only thing that allows me to gain a bit of an advantage in this fight. He's pretty tanky in human form, so the fight is not over. For his second transformation, I use Assassin Jacket to avoid his execute. And now my cooldowns are ready again and I can finish the job. In the hands of an experienced, skilled player, currently Prowling Staff feels to me like it's absolutely S+ tier, the strongest weapon for solo PvP. If you're fighting against a Prowling on pretty much any weapon, the focus of the fight needs to be the transformations. So it's your job to figure out what are your possible answers to their transformations when they're going to try to do big damage, and their job is to figure out how to protect their transformation time from taking too much damage. In the clip you're watching, the guy playing Prowling is not using polymorph and he's not even wearing a cultist cowl. So he has no tools whatsoever to prevent me from doing a lot of damage when he's in cat form. And you can see how in a situation like that, it can become almost trivially easy to fight against the Prowling. Once again, I have my invis ready for his second transformation, but once he uses his leap to get away, I know that he's trying to disengage, so I can safely use my boots, catch up and finish this fight. Now, one thing that playing Heron Spear over the past week has really taught me is hitting your spells. Now, obviously almost all weapons in solo PvP have some skill shots. But Heron Spear specifically is so strongly reliant on being able, the whole game plan relies on being able to hit a relatively dodgeable skill shot on its E, so it becomes much more important to think about it. Now I'm winning this fight here, but he still has a second healing potion and I can still very much mess this up. Notice here that instead of using my E right away and risk getting it dodged by him, I am patient and I give him a chance to use his spells first. He uses his E, he uses his chain slash, and now he has no more tools available and I can hit my E and finish the job. By the way, if you enjoy being here listening to me talk about these things, then there's a big chance you will also enjoy being part of the Discord, which is linked in the description of this video. When I say that Heron Spear taught me to hit spells better, I mean something like this. Look at this fight. In here, he's trying to come to me and my job is to do a decent amount of damage as he's closing the gap. But this E that I throw is an absolute mistake. Of course it's nice if it hits, but there was no reason to take this gamble. I could have easily continued walking away and once he gets close to me then hit a guaranteed E and do my big burst. By the way, this fight is another example of not really understanding it well enough. Both of us here are trying to kite. I walk away, I keep my jacket on invis, but he, instead of changing to Inferno and just destroying me with his Q3 brawling ability, also thinks that he's the kiter, so he does the same, walks away, uses invis. And since Heron Spear E cooldown is a lot shorter than Fists of Avalon E cooldown, my second rotation is enough to kill him. Against Froststaff, it's likely you already know my game plan. I change to Harpoon, I need to catch him because I don't have any real mobility other than boots, and it's important that I don't use my stun, my E, without him having already used his blink, because otherwise it will be very easy for him to dodge it. The first trade goes very even, but I used my Inferno. So unless he now wants to become aggressive, I'm happy to just posture for a while until my Inferno is ready and then go for another similar Harpoon. After I miss my second Harpoon, he gets pumped up and look at this. He uses his blink aggressively, just like the Froststaff from before. Now this is a very good opening for me. If I just used boots here, he would probably match them and that would be it. But I wait for my Harpoon, I catch him and now he has no blink, so he's forced to use his invis and I still have boots, which means that now there is actual potential that I will catch him. Here he has to use blink again because demon boots are balanced and he's not wearing them, meaning that if he doesn't I will just catch him right there. After that he has no W ready to dodge my Harpoon, so I can finish the job even though this guy mounted here very clearly was rooting for the Froststaff. Now swords in the mists are generally very good at brawling. And on top of that, they're also pretty good at catching up to people and forcing them into those brawls. But this 5-4 carving takes it to a whole different level. He's using Cultist Called Inferno, he's on Roasted Snapper, there is zero chance that I will ever be able to brawl him. And with that in mind, he makes a very critical mistake when preparing for this fight. He chooses Blade Cyclone W. This is a W which is really good for brawling, but he absolutely does not need any more brawling tools. What he needs is a way to actually catch me, because I am on invisibility which he cannot purge, and it's clear that I'm going to have to kite him, it's the only way that I will fight. With Splitting Slash he would have had a chance to catch me earlier and maybe already destroy me. And when running away he would have a better chance to actually kite away from me when he needs it. Instead I end up with was going to end up with a decent payday if not for the trash raid, and notice that abbeys remain a great place to make money, not only through chests but also through PvP. One reason I was able to fight the carving is by having so many abbey stacks. By the way, here's another Blade Cyclone Enjoyer. Once again we're dealing with a situation where my enemy is clearly the much better brawler, so there is no chance that I will be able to just stand and fight him. I can't just boots away because he has a purge, so I need to use my assassin jacket, go to the edge of it and then run. If he catches me again, I'm probably dead, so I decide to reset the fight instead, waiting for my assassin jacket and my cape, which was actually still on cooldown from a previous fight. He uses his E just to get closer, which isn't really necessary, but he doesn't want me to get away, and you can really see how not having Splitting Slash is really hurting him, because he does not have the tools to prevent me from kiting. I get big value from my assassin jacket as I create a bit of space between us, dodge his mercenary jacket, and buy time for my cooldowns at the same time. This is definitely the most I've gotten out of one jacket usage during this whole week. And I hope it's clear to you when you're watching these last two fights why I'm not using cripple even though I'm fighting swords, because there's no way that I want to be close enough to really get good value out of that cripple. but carving and dual swords were both mobility weapons. However, in this fight against Clarent Blade, I decide that him being so reliant on stacks and having absolutely no mobility, just like me, makes it for a pretty decent cripple fight. And you can even kind of see how me choosing cripple is turning the tables around. He's trying to kite me instead of the other way around. Since he wasted his assassin jacket earlier, when I finally get close to him and cripple his boots, there is absolutely nothing he can do against my overwhelming damage and the stun spell from Facecale Robe. And by the way, speaking of Facecale Robe, I generally played Assassin Jacket, but I decided to switch it up a bit and try this item for a couple runs. And I quickly discovered why it is so crazy expensive. On Assassin Jacket I have to choose Inferno for brawling or Invis for kiting. On Facecale Robe I am constantly ready for both. Quarterstaff correctly wants to brawl me, but I use my stun thingy on the Facecale Robe and he hits it 4 times. In fact, this spell is so powerful that this guy legit thought that I was cheating by keeping him CC'd for that long, wrote me long messages and reported me. And if you are watching this video and you are kind of new to Albion still, one of the best moments to actually learn what different spells do exactly in Albion is the moment after you die to it. Now this Fists of Avalon player tries to outsmart me by changing to counter. This gives him good outplay potential, but just like parry strike on swords or deflecting spin on spears, this spell has a bit of a problem, meaning that if you're playing against one of those things, you can often just wait until the enemy uses their defensive and then they don't have a W. I used my E from point blank range so that he couldn't react and he gets no value from his W. After we both use invisibility though, my brain goes on autopilot and this happens. His counter is ready again, but thank God I miss my E. If I hit his counter, it's quite likely I would have died or at least had a huge disadvantage here. I chase him down to finish this kill, but also use this as a great opportunity to learn the details of the counter spell for the future. And in case you also weren't sure about the spell, it reflects 100% of the damage done. On top of that, of course, if they choose to dash, they will do additional damage and knock you up, and it has 15 seconds cooldown. For the next fight, I go back to Albion West server to see who can make more mistakes in this fight, me or this 6-3 Death Givers. He makes the same mistake as some of the swords we looked at earlier. He doesn't realize how kite heavy my build is, so he goes for full brawl. He goes for Sunder Armor on his Q and Chain Slash on W, so it should be easier for me to kite him. Now, the first time he reaches me, I use my stun to create space. He then catches up with boots and I use my demon boots with more than 80% HP, so I don't get any distance. I'm forced to use my Inferno and he uses double E, which means that he no longer has kill pressure. Notice that he doesn't mercenary jacket next to a mob like the Death Givers from earlier. Now, because of his Q and W choice, I now fully control the spacing of this fight. I don't have to be worried about him getting away since his only mobility is boots and E, and I have demon boots soon ready. I use my boots to maintain the distance between us as I'm waiting for my Inferno to get ready and then throw out a desperation E from far, hoping to keep him in combat. And even though there's a mob right next to him, he doesn't chain slash to dodge it. And once again we're back to the situation where I have full control of the spacing and I can peacefully wait for my next boots to be ready. I know that no matter what I'll catch him with my next demon boots, but when I do the stupidest thing ever. I pop his undead with my purity cowl and luckily somehow I'm able to hit the stun. By far the better choice would have been to use Impaler to slow him and then throw my stun, as he would be kind of unable to dodge it. This is a happy reminder from me to you that no matter how much Albion you play, it will always remain a game of mistakes. Solo PvP is about making fewer mistakes than your opponent. And if your goal is to make fewer mistakes and become better than your opponents, then make sure to check out this video next with 10 different ways to become actually good at Albion Online PvP.